Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation on generative AI basics for B2B product managers. My name is Punit Goyle. I've been in product management for over 10 years and in the tech industry for over 20. Most recently, I was a product lead at Google, where I worked on a number of products, including Google Chat, other social media products, security products, and HR tooling. Before Google, I led product at several mid-sized companies. I've also done product marketing at Adobe, and I started my career as a software engineer at Oracle. The reason I wanted to do this session is because Gen AI is so new, and many product managers don't know how to use it within their own products. Most people have used ChatGPT and have seen other chatbots, but don't quite know how to use Gen AI in enterprise applications. My hope is that after this session, you will know the basics of how you can use Gen AI in business applications. In this session, we'll cover what Gen AI is, the capabilities that it offers, how you can make it work in your applications, how you can measure success, and also cover the challenges and limitations of Gen AI. So let's dive in. Generative AI, or Gen AI, refers to a type of AI that can create new content based on patterns it learns from training data. This is in contrast to traditional AI, which is typically designed to perform specific predefined tasks. With Gen AI, the system learns from large data sets of existing content, such as documents, images, and audio. After this training process, the AI can then generate new, unique content that reflects the characteristics of the training data. This could include writing an original poem, composing music, or producing realistic images. In other words, Gen AI can create content at scale. This makes it a really powerful tool for a wide range of applications, including business applications. Let's look at how Gen AI differs from traditional AI systems. Traditional AI is typically designed to perform specific, well-defined tasks based on predefined rules and patterns. In contrast, Gen AI is much more flexible and adaptive. It doesn't require extensive training for each individual task, and it can create entirely new content that resembles human-created work. This flexibility and generative capability makes Gen AI well-suited for tasks that have variation rather than those that require strict consistency and precision. It opens up a wider array of use cases compared to traditional AI. For product managers, a big benefit is that you can experiment with Gen AI yourself without having to find AI experts on your team. This helps you incrementally add AI capability to your products. So what are some of the key capabilities of Gen AI that can be leveraged in business applications? When we talk about Gen AI, the first example that comes to mind is a chatbot. This is mostly because ChatGPT was likely the first Gen AI product you used extensively. I want you to think more broadly about how Gen AI can be used. Personally, I like to think of three broad categories that Gen AI can be used in. It can create content, it can modify content, it can also analyze content. Let's start with the generative capability. Gen AI can be used to generate a variety of content, including product descriptions, marketing copy, user manuals, and other text-based content. It can also create audio recordings for voiceovers, podcasts, and audio snippets. Additionally, Gen AI can be used to generate product images, designs, and visualizations. This can be particularly useful for creating assets at scale, for example, in e-commerce applications. Beyond just generating new content, Gen AI can also be used to modify existing content. For example, it can generate summaries of lengthy documents, reports, or customer conversations. It can also rephrase existing text to achieve a different tone, such as converting bullet points to paragraphs in an email. Gen AI can also be used to localize content for different regions by translating and culturally adapting materials like user manuals. Finally, GenAI can be used to analyze existing content. It can turn unstructured content into structured data, extract metadata from documents, and identify trends and patterns in customer feedback or other data sources. You can hopefully start to see how you might use one of these three different categories of capabilities in your applications. Of course, you can also mix and match these capabilities. Let's walk through an example from my own work. I was responsible for improving the experience users had with the performance management system. It's essential to start with the problem that you want to solve. The problem we had was that it was time-consuming for managers to do performance reviews. We analyzed where managers were spending their time. One area that we saw where it took them a lot of time was to read through peer reviews and one-on-one notes. The solution was to summarize peer reviews and one-on-one notes. In terms of rollout, we wanted to make sure we ran experiments to validate our hypothesis. So we rolled out the feature as an opt-in. We looked at opt-in rates, and for the users who opted in, we looked at the time spent on performance reviews compared to other users. This helped us understand the value of the solution and whether we were actually providing enough value to the users. Now let's dive into how you can make GenAI work in your applications. A key aspect of this is called prompt engineering, or more simply, crafting effective prompts. Prompts are how you instruct GenAI to produce the desired output. The quality of the prompt significantly influences the quality of the model's response. Right now, it's an art, not a science, and requires experimentation to get things right. The goal is to guide the AI towards a specific type of output by providing relevant variables and context. For example, you might prompt the system to create a personalized email sequence for re-engaging past clients in an industry. If you're targeting someone in the manufacturing industry, you can specify that as a variable. And because you're specifying the industry each time, the response from the LLM is likely to be much more relevant for that industry. Another technique for making GenAI work effectively is called retrieval augmented generation, or simply RAG. Let's take the example of a support bot. The user in this example asks the question, how do I create a new account? The LLM, of course, knows nothing about your system because it's been trained on public internet data. How do we enable the LLM to answer the question about your system? The first step is to look through support documentation and find the relevant section that contains the answer. This kind of retrieval is enabled through the use of a technique called embedding. Embeddings are representations of objects like text, images, and audio that are designed to be consumed by AI models. They translate objects into a mathematical form according to the factors or traits an object may or may not have and the categories that they might belong to. Essentially, embeddings enable AI models to find similar objects. Given a user query, you can find the relevant section or a similar section that might contain the answer to the question. You can now feed the relevant section to the LLM as part of the prompt. With RAG, GenAI can access and incorporate relevant information from external sources, such as documentation or a knowledge base. And this allows the LLM to provide more contextual and accurate responses, and frankly, responses that are helpful. Back to the question that the user asked, how do I create a new account? The LLM can retrieve the relevant section from the support documentation and incorporate that information into its response. In addition to the support documentation, you can also feed in additional contextual information. So for example, if a user is logged in and has a question, you might want to look up the user profile for that logged in user to give them more personalized responses. You will need to add this personalized context to the LLM prompt. And depending on your use case, you will have to figure out what information the LLM needs to provide a good response back to the user. As you implement Gen AI in your applications, it's really important to establish metrics for measuring success. And this is really important because it's very, very hard to come up with absolute objective metrics that evaluate the quality of an LLM's response. The first type of metrics to look at are quality metrics. The AI's output should closely match the expected results. And you can measure this by looking at error rates or success rates in achieving the desired outcome. The generated content must be pertinent to the user's context and needs. And relevance can be quantified through user engagement metrics or task completion rates. The AI should be able to deliver stable and reliable performance over time, which you can monitor through longitudinal studies or regular quality checks. The AI should also be able to handle a diverse set of user requirements and inputs. You can measure AI's performance across different use cases to understand the diversity metric. Finally, your product or feature should make the users happy. You can run user satisfaction surveys to get insights into the perceived value and the effectiveness of the AI. You should also look at usability, as this can impact adoption. This can be measured through user testing, time spent on tasks, and error rates during interaction with the AI system. And as you're gathering metrics, you should continuously improve the product. Your feedback loops should inform AI improvements. And you should be measuring these metrics continuously, not just one time. And based on what you learn, you should be updating the AI system. And make sure you're able to update the AI system in response to the user feedback and changing requirements. Of course, even the most advanced generative AI systems can encounter failures and produce inaccurate or nonsensical outputs. This is often referred to as hallucinations. This is something to be prepared for and have a plan in place to address. A typical approach is a human-in-the-loop approach, where human experts review and correct the AI's outputs as a way to deal with these failures. The human feedback can be used to further train and improve the AI system to reduce future errors. In practice, what this often might include is changing your prompts or changing the data and the context you're feeding to the LLM. And while Gen AI offers so many new and exciting possibilities, you should be aware of some key challenges. Identifying valid use cases that provide significant value is crucial. Not every problem needs to be solved with Gen AI. Ensuring the availability and quality of data required to train the models can be a challenge, especially if you're going to fine-tune your model. The costs associated with the compute power required for Gen AI can be high, so it's important to carefully evaluate the ROI. You don't want to use Gen AI in situations where the ROI is low. You might need to build some expertise to implement Gen AI, and that can involve a learning curve for many organizations. Finally, make sure that the policies and regulations in your company and in your industry allow for usage of Gen AI. In addition to these challenges, there's also some inherent limitations of Gen AI that you should consider. The Gen AI outputs are going to be unpredictable. The outputs are not deterministic, and even with the same input, you might get different outputs. The models are often going to be opaque, so you're not quite going to know why a model responded in a certain way, even though your input seemed to be the right one. And then, because these models are trained on the public internet, there's the potential for perpetuating biases. And you need to manage all of these factors carefully. It's essential that as you're designing your features or products, you keep in mind these limitations and have proactive measures to address them. As product managers, you're often going to see that there's a lot of pressure on you to use AI, even when it doesn't make sense. I'll again reiterate that you should use Gen AI where it makes sense. It should really be solving a problem, and it should not be a gimmick. Don't treat Gen AI as a magic solution. Gen AI is incredibly powerful, but it's not a magic wand that solves every problem. And like any tool, it has limits that we need to be aware of and deal with. And treating it as a panacea is just setting ourselves up for disappointment. So maintain realistic expectations around what GenAI can do and what it cannot do. Don't overlook data quality. One of the biggest concerns is the massive impact data quality has on GenAI. We've heard about garbage in, garbage out, and it's definitely true here. If we feed these models low quality or biased data, or in our prompts, we give it context that isn't relevant, you can expect garbage outputs. And you need to make sure as you're building your products, you're building robust data pipelines, and you're curating the inputs that are going into the model. Don't rely on GenAI for critical decisions, at least not right now. And when it comes to high stakes domains like healthcare or finance, we need to be careful about how we deploy GenAI. Right now, I would caution against using it for autonomous, critical decision making. These systems should augment and empower human experts, not replace them on areas where there's a huge consequence of these decisions. And human oversight remains crucial in the use of GenAI. So to summarize, GenAI is a very, very flexible tool set. You can use it to generate new content, modify existing content, or to analyze data. Its deployment should be strategic, and it should target genuine user needs rather than it being used indiscriminately. The success of GenAI is gauged by the quality, diversity, and user reception of its outputs, making continuous enhancement process crucial to the success of an AI product. And while GenAI holds immense promise, it's not infallible. Occasional failures or biases necessitate a human-centric approach to supervise and fix outputs. To use GenAI, you will need to overcome these key challenges to be successful with your product. With that, I want to thank you